Alright, today we're going to be looking at switching a material using kismet. So I have a cube here. Cube could be anything in the game, okay, or any mesh. It's just a cube, it has UVs, and I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. I also need a material, so I'll right click and say new material. And this material can be called material 2. It could be in any package, preferably your package. Now, I'll need 2 textures in order to pull this off. So I'm just going to click textures here, click this button, UT game, and then pick 2 random textures. And they, since the cube has just these static UVs that show big and broad, I'm going to have to choose something like, like these 2. They're the ugliest here, so let's choose that. So we got a bright green. T on the keyboard will mount that in here. Clicking. Click. T on the keyboard. Click. Sweet. So green and brown. You'll always remember this tutorial because the colors are just so ugly. So right click here, and we need some math. So we need an add, and the add goes to diffuse. Push these back a little bit. We need 2 multiplies. New multiply. New multiply. And those 2 go here. So texture 1 attaches to A. And texture attaches to A. It doesn't really matter which channel you put these on. It could be A or B because you're multiplying channel A to channel B. Now what we need is the ability to switch the 2. Well, if you multiply something by black, and I'll just try to explain as I go here because it'll be much simpler. Right click parameters, new vector parameter. Okay, this one goes here. Then I'll need another one of those. Right click parameters, new vector parameter. Here. Okay, now you must name these something else because they're both named none now. And if they're both named none, they both change at the same time. So we'll make this very simply text1, and this one text2. Okay. Now when text1 reaches an absolute value of 1 across RGB values, you get the ugly green one. Okay. And if I take that and switch it back to 0 and switch this one to 1, I get the ugly brown one. If I have both, guess what happens? I get an ugly green mixed with an ugly brown. But the dominant color is going to be channel A. That is correct. So the dominant channel in this case is A. But if you can see, there's patches of black here in this one. So anywhere there is black in this one, there is ugly brown in this one. Alright. So we understand the math a little bit, hopefully. So I'm going to switch both of these. Well, I'll keep the brown one on by nature. So saying texture 2 is on. Alright, well, let's close this out. We'll save it and close it. And I need to go to that package. uncheck textures. Now I need to right click on it and make it a material constant. And in this one I could just close it out. Now the reason I did that is because that way I can only affect that one mesh, not every mesh in the game. So in order to tie this to, here's the difference. If I had the cube, which is under static mesh, engine. So if I had the static mesh and I double clicked on it, that's not the right one. Mine's called cube. Ah, there it is. Normally I would plug in the material or texture into this little slot right here on the side. Okay. But in this case, which is under LOD info, that one. But in this case, I want it to affect only in the one game, not in all games. So that's where a material constant comes into play. You can affect it only in the one game, the one level, and you just double click on the item and you can go down to it's so much easier to do it this way, I think. Rendering, and see where it says material. You plug the material constant into that. Now I should have an ugly brown box. So that is part one. It's just getting an ugly brown box. And we'll move on to the next section here. Okay, next we need to switch it over to green somehow in game. So I'll right click on the floor and add an actor, add a trigger, and I'll double click the trigger, and under display of the trigger I will make that not hidden. I'll highlight the trigger and go into Kismet. I'll right click anywhere here and say new event trigger touch. Okay. I'll also right click here and say new matinee. When touched, the matinee will play. Double click the matinee. Okay. Grab the box. Click here in this darker gray area, new empty group, and we'll call this box. Okay, now right click on the box and you can use new vector material parameter track. That's a mouthful, and it's going to say no, you can't do that because you forgot that it needs to be an interactor, not a static mesh. No problem. And we'll go back to finding your mesh in game. Here's cube. So click on it, right click, and say new interactor. Okay, then go back to your material because you got to also put the material constant on it. That one. Double click, display, rendering. So it's under interactor. There's a rendering somewhere around here. Finding it, we will just go under RE. Or MAT for material. Ah, there it is. Click, click. All right, so that's how you get another brown box. we'll put this brown box down here. So this is my material constant on an interactor. Boy, if you didn't watch that last video, you're screwed. But I'm going to tie them together, so that happens. All right, in your matinee, we have to delete this one now, and then we add the new interactor. So, new empty group. Again, you can call this box. Then, under box, you can go right-click, new material parameter track. Cool. Now, on this, it's going to say, well, what material? You can't find the material by itself. That would be too simple. Here's materials. And again, you want the material constant. Click here and click the green arrow. Cool. Now, by clicking the magical black dot, things pop up here. Now, remember though, there's text 1 and text 2. They're two different things. So this one, I can rename the track text 1. Okay? And it says box text 1. Now, here's another thing you could do. How about this one? Ugly green. There we go. Now I know exactly what that is. Now, the other one, we can go right click, vector parameter track. We'll call this brown. This one down below has to have that material. Just like that. So here's where it changes. Again, just to recap so you know what's going on. Here is vector parameter text 2. Okay, again, it's named down here text 2. So that's brown. Then that means here, this one is called text 2. Leaving ugly green to be text 1. There we go. Now to get brown up here next to green, you just click this. Now we got brown and ugly green. And what we're going to do is start at the first frame here and put a keyframe for this one and put a keyframe for this one. I just hit enter on the keyboard, highlighting this one first, hit enter, this one, enter. Alright, now there is RGB values all stacked up on top of each other, and this is where it gets really fun. First off, we'll concentrate on brown. It's already at brown, right? Brown is 1. So the blocks turn black. Why? Because I just changed it to 0. The keyframe did that. So what I'm going to do is turn all this off and concentrate one of these at a time. Right click, set value 1. Next, right click, set value 1. Turn that one off, turn that one on. Right click, set value 1. When turning them all on, brown box appears. Alright, you set your first keyframe. Now, what should the ugly green one be? Well, let's turn this one off. Again, I always just turn it all off. And ugly green should be 0, right? But we want this to change to ugly green, so in 2 seconds, we'll set a value here for ugly green. Okay. Enter on the keyboard. Green highlighted. And green needs to switch over. So the first one, right click, set value 1. Right click, set value 1. This one, right click, set value 1. Nice. So now I get a brown that turns to a green. What happens to brown? Well, brown needs to be switched over to 0. So brown, this one, turn this one on, turn this off. There we go. So when I moved this out, it became 0 anyway. Now to see the full spectrum here, this is what I should get. Waves of crosses. And anytime you see this, basically this one turns to 1, this one turns to 0. I'll get as simple as that for the demonstration. Alright, cool. Now, what we can do is close this hot mess out. And that trigger, I'll click on it, go down below, and set the max trigger count to be 0 or 1. Whoop, yeah, 0. There we go. Close that out. I'll have to add a light to this, add an actor, add a point light so I can see it, and right click and play from here. Okay, so let's touch the trigger. Ooh, pretty. Now what's it going to do when I touch it again? Squat. Why? Because I haven't told it to switch back. But you know that all you do is have to do what? I like asking that question. Untouched equals reverse. There's a many way you could do that, but that's the simplest way. Pretty cool. So that's how you switch a material using a trigger and Kismet. Enjoy.